So today we're going to be talking about the connection between sustainability, fashion, and also mental health, and how I believe that we can create the most sort of truly sustainable future. I think they are all connected. Shall I see if this actually works? No, it doesn't. Oh, it did work. Hey, great. So today we're going to cover topics of fashion and sustainability, change management, psychology of consumption, basic human needs, and also emotional states. And then finally, we're going to talk about how I believe that we can build a sustainable future based on these items here. Fashion and sustainability. As you all know, I'm really involved in the whole fashion industry, and that's kind of my passion. So we're going to start there. So at the moment, we are producing about 350,000 tons of textile waste every single year at least. It's probably looking more like 500,000 tons at the moment in the UK alone, which is quite a large amount. And we're producing 100 billion garments worldwide, globally, every single year, and that number is set to increase in the next few years if we don't do anything about it. So we really need to try to curb that number, because there's no way we can have a sustainable future if we keep consuming like 100 billion garments every single year. And that number has actually gone up quite a lot in the last maybe just 3 or 4 years. It was 80 billion just a few years ago when I started doing this presentation, and now we're at 100. So give it another 6 years or so, we're probably going to double. And only 1 to 2% of the materials that we are currently using can get recycled. The rest will go to our landfills, will end up in the desert, will end up, random places around the globe, in our waterways and so on. So we think sometimes we take clothing to recycling, or we take it to charity shops, or whatever we do, thinking that it's going to get recycled and reused, but actually it always ends up in a landfill, because we don't have the capabilities to actually recycle our clothing at the moment. So we really have to start reducing our consumption, because we can't recycle our way out of it. 1 to 2%, that's all we can do. We don't have the technology to recycle more. There are some innovations around this space trying to recycle more clothing, but at the moment we're not there yet. We can recycle some monofibers like cotton or linen and break it down and turn it into new yarn. But in terms of mixed fibers, which is about 75% of the clothing that we wear, we can't recycle it properly just yet. There are some innovations in Sweden. There's a company called Renew Cell that does it. But they're not at full capacity yet. So that's going to be really interesting to watch, to see what's going to happen with that. They're trying to scale their recycling there. But yeah, 1 to 2%, which is really, really low. And I think most people are shocked by this number. They think it's higher. They think that if we just take the clothing to recycling centers, it's going to get recycled. It does not happen. And then pollution, of course, because of this, we are producing a huge amount of clothing. So of course, that's going to produce a lot of pollution. And not just air pollution, also water pollution, because of the chemicals that we're using in processing our clothes and in washing our clothes. There's a lot of chemicals goes into that. I think it's like 20,000 different kinds of chemicals goes into the production of our clothing at the moment, and very few of them are actually FDA approved. We don't actually know what goes into our clothing and the things that we're wearing. The next thing is deforestation. We talk about deforestation sometimes when we talk about the meat industry and the food industry, but actually it's caused also by the fashion industry, because we're clearing grounds to maybe plant more cotton, for example, or bamboo forests have been depleting over the past few years as well. I know it grows really fast, but at the same time, there's also a huge demand for bamboo, and sometimes we're cutting them down too quickly for it to actually regrow. So the poor pandas. And then the last thing that I want to mention in terms of our impact is actually human cost. Because our clothing is so cheap at the moment that there is somebody somewhere else is paying for that. There is no way that as our fashion industry stands at the moment, there's actually no way that we can get the clothing at the price that we're buying it at and still pay fairly. It's just not how the industry is built. For us to actually be able to get the cheap clothing that we're wearing, that we're buying from whether it's fast fashion brands, supermarkets, wherever it is, somebody somewhere else is paying that price. And sometimes it's at human cost, sometimes it's through their lives. There has been a lot of factory fires. There's also been factory collapses where people literally have died because they were making our clothes cheaply. And they may be paid $3, I think is the going rate in Bangladesh at the moment per day. And that could be a 10-hour workday. And they did a research recently where they said actually they can't even afford to pay that price at the moment in Bangladesh. About 50% of the factories that were interviewed say that they cannot afford to pay $3 a day to the workers to make our clothes. So the people that are suffering the most are the farmers, the factory workers, and then just so that we can buy the cheap clothing that we buy that we then throw away without even wearing sometimes. Sometimes we buy clothes and we just put it in the back of the wardrobe, or we take it to charity shops and thinking, oh, we've done our bit, we've donated a charity shop, but actually those people that were making our clothes really suffered through that process. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. This did work. In terms of fashion, I want to cover something else that's a little bit different today as well. But I just wanted to open up with that, just to get us to think about all the things that we're consuming every single day. And fashion is one of the things that maybe we don't think about that much. It's just clothes. We might not be aware of what, like where does it come from? How does it get made? What goes into our clothing? We may not question that. So today, so I have met some of you, most of you, but my name is Ching. So I'm the founder of Refashion My Town. Refashion is I see some people that I haven't met. So Refashion My Town is a social enterprise that is based here in Chippenham. And we encourage young people to really make a positive social and environmental impact through fashion. That's kind of like our core mission. And my journey in fashion really started, back in 2007, when I launched a sustainable kids fashion brand. A friend of mine asked me to launch a brand with her, and I said, yes, why not? Did not know anything about fashion, did not know anything about sustainability. And during that process, I learned a lot because she actually left about a year later on. So I was left to manage that brand by myself and knowing nothing. So I had to learn really quickly about how to design clothes, how to source, how to produce everything, how to do everything. But it was working pretty well, and it was quite an interesting journey. And during that journey, I also learned how sustainable the fashion industry is. Note I didn't say was, because it still is, and also how unethical it also is. And so in 2006, I decided to stop all production. And at that time, we produced a collection which was basically an accumulation of everything that I learned during those 10 years. It was sustainable, it was compostable, it was urine zero waste design techniques, it had growing packs because we were doing kids fashion. So kids grow, sort of tend to grow lengthways, and there's nothing, they can't buy better quality and make it last. It just doesn't work for kids because they really have to, they grow out their clothes. So we tried to find a solution where we could have this extension built into our clothing where they could extend, they can wear the same garment for another 2 or 3 years, so reducing waste in that way. So that was a collection that was very well covered by the press. It was mentioned in CNN, Virgin Radio, like newspapers all over the place. So it was a really good collection, but still I felt like I was still contributing to the mess that the fashion industry essentially was. So there was no way to produce something, to reduce something. And in order for the business to work, I had to scale, I had to sell more. But how do you do that in a fashion, in the fashion industry when you have to produce more? But what happened? So it didn't make sense to me anymore, so I stopped all production. And then a lady here in Chippenham, Sue Cassell, I don't know if you guys know her, you know her. So she approached me in around 2017, 2008, I think it was 2017, 2018 perhaps, and asked me to launch a sustainable or a textile recycling project with her, a little like local little project. And I said, yes, of course, sounds great. And that was the beginning of Refashion. So it's kind of grown out of that little seed, that little idea. And I just want to walk you guys through how Refashion works as a business that's based on this model called the ADKAR change management model, which is used quite a lot within organizations for change management. But I've adapted it slightly for habit change. So change management, it starts there with awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And normally when you use it in a corporate environment, you use it in a more linear way. So you start with awareness, you go through the different stages. But in Refashion, I've decided that actually we need to make it more cyclical. And I'll explain in a little bit how that works. So awareness, so each of these pieces fed into each of the activity that we do at Refashion. So we start with awareness. Awareness is when we go out to schools, we talk about the negative impact of fashion, why we're doing what we're doing. Because without the awareness, no change will happen. So we have to always start with awareness when we are talking about change. And the next stage is desire. How do we instill a desire in people? Sometimes I may mention young people, but I mean all people. But I'm just so used to talking about like young people. But so how do we instill a desire in people to actually want to change? They have the awareness, but now how do we inspire them to actually want to change? And I'll talk a little bit more about desire to change in a moment. I'll go back to that. And then you have knowledge. So once you have a desire to change, you need more knowledge. So what we do at Refashion, we teach them sewing, mending, and upcycling skills so that they can then take those skills and then implement their desire to change. And the next stage is ability. So when we had a shop here, I didn't mention it before, but we used to have a shop across the road up until the end of last year. So that shop enabled our young people to come in and buy secondhand clothes that was especially selected for them, and also gave them the opportunity to be able to work with us and get work experience and volunteer with us and be part of our community. That's what we did for the ability space. So that was a really unique space where they could just be them and explore creativity. And then reinforcement is the last piece that part of this ADKAR system, which is community. Basically, an accountability. For any change to happen, any habit changes to happen, we need accountability. We need a community to support us. Because without that, if we are by ourselves, it's really difficult to make any changes. So in everything in my life, anything that I want to change, need to change, I make sure I have an accountability partner. Like I try to write a book, I have an accountability partner that I call every week. You know, every part of my life, I have an accountability partner. And that's what reinforcement is accountability, is community. Community is really, really important for change, because without a community that can support us and believe in the same values as us, no change will happen, because we'll go back to our old habits. We're humans, that's what we do. So that is what the system, Refashion, is based on, this system. And the reason why I made it cyclical rather than linear, what we believe is that once our community of young people goes in the reinforcement stage where they are part of the community, what we would like them to do is take it and spread their words and create more awareness with other people, and that cycle can start again, but with other young people or other older people as well. But you know, like so other people, and it'll keep going in cycles like that, and that cycle would just grow and grow. So that's why I made it cyclical rather than a linear process. So this is Refashion basically in a circle. Now, I'm going to next talk about the psychology of consumption. So a lot of the work that I do is based on consumption, because that's why I stopped my brand in the beginning, because what I realized is that we are producing all of this clothing at the end of the day. Although I was trying to reduce waste by producing the things that I was producing in the way that it was produced, it still ends up in the landfill. The problem actually is consumption. It's not that we have a lack of good, sustainable products. It is actually consumption that is a big part of the problem that we're facing in sustainability. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about consumption. And consumption is not so much about, so we know that consumption is causing deforestation, pollution, plastic pollution, toxicity in the world, and waste. But it's all caused by materialism, capitalism, and all of that. We know that. But why do we continue to just consume endlessly? Because we need something? Well, we don't. We don't need more clothes. None of us need more clothes, I'm guessing. I have loads of clothes and I haven't bought anything new for the last 5 or 6 years. So we don't need it physically, but I think what we do need, I think there is a emotional element to consumption that we sometimes don't think about. We are consuming quite often to fulfill an emotional need that we have within us. And that's why we can't stop consuming, because we are trying to fill that emotional void that we have within us. So we keep consuming more and more because the more unhappy we are, actually, the more we consume. That has been proven. And it's not just in fashion, it's not just in shopping, it's, let's say, food. We all stress eat. I don't know, some of us stress eat. When we're stressed, it's not because we need nourishment. We are consuming because we need to feel that emotional need that we have, that we are lacking. And in fashion, there is, we might go shopping because we are bored. We need a bit of variety in our life. That's an emotional need. It's not because we need clothes. It's an emotional need that we're trying to fill using, whether it's shopping or consuming food or drinks or whatever it is. It is that emotion that is driving our consumption more often than not. Sometimes we might need something specific in our lives, but most of the time, 99% is probably because we are trying to fill an emotional need. And the way that fashion works, which I find is really interesting, because I run a marketing agency as well, so I do this all the time. The way we figure out how we can sell products to people, we tap into that. We tap into people's emotional needs. So we always start with any client. We ask them, okay, so where are your clients now? Where do they start? Where are they now currently in their state, in their mind? Where are they now? And where do they want to go? What is their dream life that they want to achieve? Where do they want to go with in their life in general? It's got nothing to do with the products just yet. And the product and the marketing campaign that we put together for them is that bridge that gets them from their undesired state to where they desire to be. And if you can sell to anybody anything, you can sell to anybody anything based on that assumption that you can sell them that dream. I can sell that chair to you if I wanted to say your life is going to become better. And that's how marketing works, and that's how fashion works. So a lot of the time we look at fashion, we see a poster of this amazing man or woman standing there on this tropical island doing her thing, living life, and then we're here in this miserable place and it's raining and we're feeling ugly and sad, or whatever it is. We look at that, we're thinking, oh, I wish I was her. And you go, oh, that looks really nice. And then you start to imagine yourself wearing that dress that she's wearing, living that life that she's living. And then you think, oh, if I could just have that life. And then you think, well, I can't have that life, but I can have that dress. And that's how it works. That's how all of marketing works. So you end up buying the thing that sells you that dream. And then that's why it's so difficult to stop shopping and stop consuming, because we all have these voids in us that we need to fill. Those insecurities, that unhappiness. We keep consuming more and more, trying to fill that gap. So unhappy people consume more. I think I mentioned that already, and it doesn't matter what socioeconomic background they have. They just consume differently. Maybe if you don't have a lot of money, you might just buy a pair of socks. Maybe she was wearing these beautiful socks, you couldn't afford a dress, but you buy the socks. Or if you had a lot of money, maybe you think, okay, well, I'll buy that yacht that's behind her. You consume differently, but you're still consuming with the same, because of the same thing. And then the next thing I want to just cover quickly is the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. I don't know, do you guys know it? I imagine most people already know it. I don't know if you know it so kind of have discussed this in conjunction with consumerism and sustainability, but so the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is based on these 5 basic human needs that Maslow believes that we all need these 5 human needs for us to feel fulfilled and happy in our lives. And the way it works is that you start at the bottom, you fulfill your physiological needs first. So each stage is in importance. So first you fulfill the bottom, the physiological need, and then you go upwards in the hierarchy, and that's how you get to the top of it, where it's self-actualization. But first you need to fulfill your physiological need. And physiological need is your food, water, shelter, and actually human touch as well is really important. Because if a baby was left alone without any human touch, would probably get really ill and die eventually. So human touch is there as well. And the next stage is safety. Safety is somewhere safe to live, somewhere safe to stay. But for me, it's more about emotional safety. And what I've realized is that a lot of people, especially in the last couple of years where I worked with a lot of young people that were struggling with the mental health, this is where they live. They live there in the safety, I can't point there, in the safety space. And they can't get above that because they don't feel safe within themselves. They don't feel safe within the communities. They don't feel safe at school. They don't feel safe at home. And it's just an emotional safety. They may well be safe, but actually emotionally they're not feeling safe. So therefore they're struggling to find love and connection. They're struggling to reach out to the communities. They can't. If you feel unsafe within yourself, you do not reach out to your communities because it's not safe, right? So you're not stepping out of your comfort zone at all. So you stay there in that unsafe space, and then you're lacking love and connection, you're lacking community, and then esteem. Esteem comes from self-esteem, so it's two parts. It's like your own self-esteem, and then it's esteem that comes from other when people tell you that you're doing a great job. But if your self-esteem is low, sometimes you can't receive it, because even if people are praising you or telling you how amazing you are, you can't receive it if your self-esteem is low. So a lot of young people that are living in this unsafe space, they have low self-esteem, they've got no connection with themselves, they don't feel a sense of community, they don't build healthy love and connection with each other or even themselves. It's also about themselves. So love and connection is very much about giving and taking. Otherwise, that need cannot be fulfilled. You need to give, you need to take. And then they have low self-esteem because all of these other things is lacking. And then we're asking them to fulfill their sense of purpose. We're asking them to change the world. We're asking them to do things for the planet. They're not going to do it. They cannot engage because they're here. They're down here at the bottom where they're feeling unsafe, where they're feeling unseen, and they have low self-esteem. They don't even know why they're here. They're struggling to get through the day. They're really struggling to even, like some young people that we work with in the last couple of years, they don't even want to live. It's that bad, and mental health issues is really, really serious issue. And we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about changing the world. We're trying to introduce all these new innovations and ideas. It's not going to sit with them because they're down here. They're down here feeling unsafe and sad and depressed. So I'm just going to go to this slide here. I'm almost done. So this slide here, it sort of describes our emotional states when we're feeling safe versus unsafe. So a person that is at the bottom of that hierarchy, when they're feeling unsafe, when they're feeling like they have no self-esteem, when they can't fulfill their own sense of purpose. They don't even know what that sense of purpose is. And they actually don't care about the planet at all, because why should they? They don't even care about themselves. They don't see a bright future ahead of them. All they can see is depression, darkness. They're not going to try and change anything because they are in this state here where they're feeling disempowered. They're feeling anxious. They're feeling isolated. They're feeling no trust in others. They have no trust for themselves. And they have a negative view of the world. And also they have low self-confidence. From that state, how can we take any action? How can we ask a young person to come forward and save the planet? They can't, because they're living here. So what we need to do, sometimes we see young people actually, they are on the other scale where they have all of their emotional needs met. They are there, they're feeling empowered, they're feeling confident, they're proactive, they want to go out there, they have a strong sense of purpose, they have a strong sense of self, and they want to take risks because they dare to take risks. They dare to take risks because they feel safe in themselves. So we need to take more young people. Again, when I mention young, it's everyone, but it's just that I'm really passionate about working with young people and being with young people. So when we take people from a disempowered state into a more empowered state, that's how we can actually start to see real changes within a community. That's how we can start to see real changes in terms of sustainability. Because I really believe that we can't engage young people in sustainability issues, trying to save our planet, do the right thing, when they're struggling here. How is that going to happen? And then when you're struggling, when you're depressed, when you have all these emotional needs that are not being met, you look inwards. So if you think about the moments when you're sitting by yourself and you're feeling depressed, you look inwards. You don't want to save anything. You're just trying to survive. So when you, on the other side, when you're feeling more empowered, you start to look outwards and you start to see other people. You want to then save the planet. You want to do X, Y, and Z to build a better future. But you really need to be in that empowered state for that to happen. So I believe that in order for us to really create a truly sustainable future, we need to create more happier, healthier, more connected individuals and communities. That is what I believe, and I also have put it in brackets here, especially for those who are neurodivergent, because they are creative superstars who can help us solve problems that neurotypical people cannot. So I included that because we worked a lot with neurodivergent young people, and 80% of them have mental health issues, and versus neurotypical. But actually, they are so creative, and they're wasting like all of their talents because they can't express them because they don't belong in the world that they live in. So we need to take more of these disempowered, neurodivergent young people and actually give them a platform to just thrive. So we need to get them out of survival into thriving. So that is me. In fact, we are trying to work on a new project with the Wiltshire Council now, trying to launch a project where we're actually going to take a group of neurodivergent young people and support them and teach them and do interventions with them and take them on a 12-month journey with us to take them from this place here to make them future leaders, change makers, whatever it is that they want to do. So that is me. This is what I believe. This is how I believe that we can create a truly sustainable future. I think there is a lack of conversations about humans within this conversation about sustainability, about mental health, because we can't just talk about solutions when people are not ready to receive them. So that is me. And my contact information, if anybody wants to ask me any questions and if you want to help. Oh, I've got a survey here for young people and one for parents of young people to help guide me in the project that we're trying to launch with Wiltshire Council to try to build this out. So take the survey if that is you. Volunteer with us, collaborate with us, connect with us, whatever it is. Yeah, happy to talk. So that's me. Thank you. Any questions? Something a little bit different. Usually I just talk fashion, but I think we needed to raise issues about humans as well in this big conversation. Any questions, anybody? Yeah?
So first of all, thank you. That was a fascinating talk. I think the conclusion is that capitalism wants us to be unhappy.
Yes, yes. Every marketer, every product seller, that's how it works. If you're happy, I can't sell you anything. My industry will die, essentially. Yeah, it is based on unhappiness, everything that we're trying to sell.
I was really interested to hear about your project. Is that going to be based in Ching or?
The one that we wanted at the moment trying to launch, we're still trying to get some funding together. This is a fairly new idea, so we're trying to raise some funding. Will be Wiltshire-based. We are talking about maybe Chippenham, Cairn to begin with, perhaps Corsham, maybe Melksham. So we'll see how the funding works, but we really need to get enough of development funding together first, because the last thing I want to do is take these young people on board and not being able to deliver the training for them and support them. Because what I want to do is give them 3 months mental health intervention training every week for 12 weeks, and then 3 months of entrepreneurial training to teach them the skills in how to launch projects and how to build something for them to really build their self-esteem and their confidence. And then 6 months of implementation time when we support them through building out this project and also give them a little bit of seed funding to start their project so they can really thrive within the community and start engaging with the community through their projects. It's really important to take them from that space and gently lead them through to that, the thriving space when they feel confident about their own sense of purpose and delivering a project based on their needs. So, yeah. It's up to them. So we'll discover that in the first, probably not even the first 3 months. First 3 months, it's just about them, about their mental health and getting them to a better place. and then 3 months of exploring ideas, exploring in new innovations, exploring their own sense of purpose, because each person has a different sense of purpose. We're all here to do different things. Not everyone has got the same. Maybe it's not even entrepreneurship, but the reason why I want to include entrepreneurship, because what if they find that thing they actually want to do for the rest of their lives? So let's teach them some skills to make that happen. Let's enable them to take their purpose, actually fulfill that, and make money at the end of it as well, so they can actually live on that. Because a lot of these young people don't have those skills, so they're stuck being creative. But being creative is great, but what if you can live on your creativity? Wouldn't that be even better? So, yeah, so hopefully Wiltshire, but this part of Wiltshire first, in short. Yeah, okay. Anything at the moment we need some help with funding applications. And eventually we are going to need some help just with running the corporation. We look, corporation, let's say, the organization, we are looking at creating a new board as well. So anybody that is willing or want to be part of our board can come and speak to me as well and actually help us steer this project and move forward. We need a little bit more accountability. We have a couple of people involved at the moment, but I really want to build out that board to make it a really fully functioning and fully sort of accountable unit. So if interested. And volunteers, it could be some events. We might run events sometimes. We might need volunteers for that, or we might need volunteers to do marketing. We will see as it evolves. Anything else? Thank you. If you have teens or young people, do scan. Do a survey. I'm not going to launch it until we've got a couple of 100 research projects on.